All right, you guys. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Looks like a couple people are still walking in. My name is Justin Russell. I'm going to be the moderator, and there's a script I'm supposed to read. It says, "Good afternoon, and welcome to the 47th Caller Lab Convention in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Today is April 11th. It's Monday afternoon, and this session is called Square View 2. So they just wrapped up the beginner Square View, and this is supposed to be a more in-depth version. I'm your moderator, Justin Russell. Our panelist today is Barry Johnson, and I wrote down a couple things about him. He is from Lake in the Hills, Illinois, for the next 2 weeks. Then he's packing up, him and his wife, Anita. They're moving to Medford, Minnesota. And I was the program chair for the National Square Dance Convention. And I'll tell you, I love working with Barry. One, because he stays up late. I'll text him at like 10:30 at night. Hey, are you still up? But he helped with the NCOS program, so programming all of the callers. And when you call Barry, he can talk to you about technology and not make you feel dumb. And so I appreciated working with him. Unfortunately, for me, he had a grandbaby the weekend after, so he did not make it to Jackson, Mississippi, but he has a first grandchild. And so, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Barry Johnson.
Thank you, Justin. So there was an earlier session just an hour ago on the sort of beginning fundamentals of Square View.
That wasn't beginning, that was high tech.
that was things like how to install it, how do you put files on your computer, where do you put it, how do you start the music playing, and things like that. This is intended to be a deeper look than some of that. So things like how do you change the tempo or the pitch. We're probably not going to talk much about that during this session here. Instead, we're going to go explore some of the other corners of the program. I do have a number of notes written down on this. I will get those notes to Teresa to publish as part of the Caller Lab portal and on the website for afterwards. So don't feel that you need to scratch down everything, because I've got this all sort of written down for you. But we are going to just mainly look at it here on the screen as we go. I hope you'll be able to see enough of the screen from where you're sitting that we can talk about things. Square View is one of several computer programs written specifically for use in the square dance world. There are other programs. This one just happens to be popular, I think, mostly because it's free. And so a lot of people use it. There are other fine programs out there that do things. Don't take this as how do I want to phrase it? Don't believe that Square View is the only program in the world. There are others out there, but it is very common, very, very popular to use. I think somewhere around 70–75% of callers happen to use this one. So a couple of things we're going to look at. We're going to start here on the main music tab. As you may have seen, and I know it's too small to read from where you're sitting, across the top here there are several different tabs showing things like lyrics, showing things like the list of calls, or even list definitions of things, of the calls at the level that you're working. The main music tab, tab number 1, by the way, first little trick here, each of the tabs has a number or a letter associated with it. If I wanted to real quick switch to the definitions tab, yes, I could get out my mouse or my touchpad, or I could simply press the letter or the digit that's at the start there. I can push the digit 4 and it takes me off to that tab. If I push a 1, it takes me back to the beginning. So all of those tabs have kind of a number. You can just use the keyboard to get at those if you wish. So on this main music tab, one of the first features we want to take a look at is the square identification. If you wish, there's this button that's got a gold and blue interlock squares on it. If you were to press that button, you can see a list of who's dancing. If you want to record some information about a pilot square or the like, there's an edit button that I can click here, and then we could type in things like, we could type in names, and we can even choose the color for the dancers. We can, come on, there it is. We could even choose what color we want displayed there. And then you can, you can save that, and then as you're calling it, there was a hide button. As you're calling, you can, if you're looking to resolve and you don't remember, you can just click that button again and it will show you what you typed in. So if you didn't want to make notes of corners on a piece of paper, you can do that with this square identification button here in the middle of the screen. Right next to that is a button called tracking. Particularly for some of our callers overseas, keeping track of the music that they use at different dances is actually very important. In some cases, they have to actually report the music that they use to the licensing body, and that's what they pay based on what music they actually play. Other people, I know Tom Miller, for example, tells me he keeps track of every piece of music he uses at each dance. Tom also keeps extensive records of other things. He told me he even writes down what shirt he was wearing when he goes off to do some special dance, because when he comes back to that club a year later, he doesn't want to wear the same shirt. But SquareView won't keep track of your shirts, it will keep track of your music. If you turn on this tracking button, you press it once. This is a green button up next to the clock in the corner. If you press that once, you'll be prompted to enter the name for a given dance. And then as you go ahead and play pieces of music through the course of the dance, it writes that down in a file. And then later, we can use a tool. Under the tools, there is Track Manager that would let you see that list of music that you used and either export it to a spreadsheet. You can even write it out to a spreadsheet, modify it if you wish, putting in other notes or things, and then import it right back into SquareView. So if you'd like to track your music, use that tracking button, type in the name of a dance, it will keep track of, you'll write down every piece of music that you start. There is, for those that sometimes start music and say, oh, nope, that was the wrong one. You can even, under the options, there's even an option that says, how long does this music have to play before it gets written down? I'm going to make sure I play it for at least a minute. Maybe I've got some introductory thing that I want to play and I don't want that recorded. You can set that kind of thing under the options. The next little button down there on the user interface, right below the tracking button, is another one here labeled markers. Sometimes I've talked to people who are saying, gee, I don't know what happened to my loop information here on the screen. It went away. I used to have it. Where did it go? They turned out to have pressed the markers button by accident. Markers are a way of setting little bookmarks, as it were, associated with a given piece of music at certain times in that music. If, for example, you were teaching round dancing, you might want to put a mark at the beginning of section A or part B, part C, and then go back and play those again, be able to return back to that using a push of a button, go back and restart the music from there. Another very common use case for these markers are people that are using SquareView to run what we would call tape groups. Folks dancing to pre-recorded dances, oftentimes workshops and things, perhaps at higher level dances we really see it, where they might actually set a mark at the beginning of each sequence within a tip. And they try and dance the sequence, and if they break down, okay, everybody, let's go back home, push a button, donk, and it begins playing again back from that last mark, so that you can just redo that one sequence as you practice and get it right. I should mention, going along with these, particularly with the markers, Keith Rubo sells a bit of hardware and software that many people have used with this. What Keith sells is like a little box with 6 big buttons on it. You can attach that with Velcro to a pocket or hang it off of a belt or something like that. It includes an antenna that plugs into the computer through the USB port, and you can program it using a bit of software he has, where each of the 6 buttons represents a key on the keyboard. And so if you set it up a little bit correctly, you can have on your belt a button that says, mark this point in the sequence, go back to a different button that says go back to that mark I just set, or skip forward to the next mark, or go back and start over. You'll see in a moment there's actually many different functions we could associate with those keys. So people have been known to actually do this remotely using these little buttons on their belt. Finally, I've heard of a couple of callers that when they use a headset to call, they also use the buttons on the belt to help control SquareView when they're standing out in the middle of a dance floor. They can restart the music, they can set it. They can even go from their pattern music, they can push a button on the belt that says, start playing my next, the singing call I'm going to do. Playing right down the list of cued music or a playlist. So there's a lot of little things you can do with that, particularly with the markers. But once again, the markers are, I think, most commonly used with tape groups that are practicing higher level dancing and need to go back and try that over again. All right, so that's markers. Hang on, John, just a second. One thing that when you do push this markers button, it does rearrange a bit of information on the screen. And so if you think that you've lost stuff, if the screen looks different, make sure that your marker button is not checked, and then you can do it. Yes, we had a question, John.
All right.
Be sure.
Hang on, Justin's going to bring you the microphone. We'll use the microphone as we ask the questions so that all the questions get on the recordings as well.
John Harden, Caledonia, Illinois. When you set your markers, is that saved with the same button that would save your loop information and volume and tempo and everything else? Is it all under one save, or does it need a separate save?
There is a small button, a small checkbox down here on the bottom called Lock. If you check that Lock button, then it will not allow you to actually change the markers for a given song. They stay where they are. If you leave Lock unchecked, and particularly if you check the little box up here, Auto Mem, it will record the markings and save them when you save the song. So yes, you can save all that and then just reuse them at a later time. There's also tools we'll look at a little bit later where you can go in and fiddle with the markers independently of actually playing the music here. All right, so that's the markers. The next topic that a lot of people ask about, and I don't believe they looked into this in the previous session, and that's how, in dealing with lyrics and cue sheets for singing calls on the machine, how do we go ahead and do those? When we purchase new music from a producer, it may or may not come with a cue sheet, or you may not like the cue sheet that the producers provided. You might like to do something different, and there's even more reasons than that. One of the tools that SquareView offers is under this tools menu, there's a thing called cue sheets. If we click that tools cue sheets, we get this dialog that pops up, this window, where we can actually write a cue sheet ourselves. There's sections here for the opener, a section for the middle break, a section for the figure, and a section for the closer. You can go in and type whatever you want in here. Basically, it's 8 lines for each of those sections, sort of corresponding to the typical 8 bars or 64 beats for a given part of the music. There are check boxes next to each line. The checkbox is labeled lyrics. So if you type in a line and check the lyrics box right next to it, then that line will be highlighted by default in SquareView. When you play it, it'll show up in that default of sort of a purplish, pinkish purplish color, or whatever color you choose. We'll look at that in a second. So you can differentiate between the calls, the commands, and the lyrics that you'd be singing along. You can write different figures for the opener, the middle break, the closer, or you can say, no, this is just the same as the other one. Finally, over here on the side, you can give your cue sheet a name by typing in a label and a title. Now the label, the record label, whatever, the number the producer assigns and the title of the song, if you make those match the MP3 file, then it will locate that cue sheet automatically for you. SquareView will do the right thing, but in general, you want your cue sheets to have like a record number, a label number, then a space dash space, followed by the song title. If you do that, things line up nicely. There is an option we can look at that if you prefer not to do the label numbers. When I first started, I was backing up a lot of stuff on my phones, and I preferred to show the title first and put the label number at the end. So there's an option where you can set that if you wish. But finally, when you go to save this cue sheet, one other thing I want to point out, there's a little drop-down list down in the corner near the save. I know this is too small for most people to read, but this list says, I'd like to see this cue sheet formatted as a single column running up and down with section after section after section, or you can make it 2 columns wide, so that you see like the opener and maybe the figure and then the middle break and the closer all side by side, or you can even make it more columns depending on what will fit across the width of the screen. With today's computer systems, today's laptops, having the more sideways format, the aspect ratio, compared to older ones that were more up and down, I think you find that you'd be much happier when you write your cue sheets if you use the 2 columns or the 2, 3, 4 columns when you go to save it. So one feature I wish that could be changed with SquareView is it's a little hard to edit an existing cue sheet. There is a way. We'll look at that in a second. But this lets you go ahead and put in lyrics the way that you want it. Let's see. You can save all of that. Any questions on writing lyrics real quick before I go on? Yes, there are a couple. Okay. We'll try not to belabor any one section of the program too long, but I don't want to have people wait till the very end to remember things. Yes, Christine.
Christine, McHenry, Illinois. It looks like you can only put 1 figure in.
There is a later version of SquareView than what I have installed that I believe allows you to put more than 1 figure in. Of course, you could take the section labeled opener or closer or something like that and put in what you wanted. Depending on how far you go, if you are capable of writing HTML, and not even very difficult HTML, but a little bit, you can construct cue sheets that look like, basically they're web pages is what they are, that are being displayed here. And so you can invent one that looks like whatever you want, but that goes a little bit further. Jeremy, you were next.
Yeah, Jeremy Butler, Virginia Beach, Virginia. So my question was basically a little bit on that. So when you type up the cue sheet in that way that you were just showing, does it? How does it show up when you click on the lyrics? Does it look like the others, or
it looks like the others? It looks like.
With the beige background and the pink highlighting and all that fun stuff?
Yes. No. What did I do here? Why didn't that show up? I must have cleared. Oh, I know what I did earlier. It shows up like this. The lines that you have checked as lyrics get this pinkish background, whereas the other lines not checked as lyrics get this. We can talk about the formatting, the style, and the stuff here in just a second. Bruce, you had a question.
I just want to mention that I always use PDFs for this part of it because then I have total control over what it's going to look like on the screen. And I can do color coding for different parts with my singing partner, and it can be exactly the way I want it instead of hoping that this thing turns out. And you just need to have a PDF display program on your computer, and SquareView will talk to it and send it the information, and it gets displayed right in the same window.
Certainly, yep. SquareView can display PDF files. It can open up things like Microsoft Word documents. Of course, those open up in a separate thing. By the way, regarding PDF files and Microsoft Windows and recent versions of Windows, the Windows PDF program has started prompting the user. Every time you open up a PDF file, do you want to download this file? Yes, I want to. Thanks. Show it to me. The workaround for that, the most recent workaround that I've heard, is install some other PDF reader. Don't use the default one from Microsoft, whether it's the Adobe or there's several other variations of PDF display programs that don't give you that prompt every time you start looking at things. One of the things that SquareView can do, though, with regards to lyrics, if we go to Options and Choreography, under oops, sorry, I wanted to go to a different option first. I want to go to Options, Lyrics, and then just down here near the top of the options. By the way, SquareView has hundreds of options. We're not going to go through every option today. We're not going to go through a sizable fraction of them, but there are many, many things configurable in here. And so it's worth reading through these list of options, looking for something that sounds interesting. One of the things that you can set in here, the default is false, I've changed it to true, is this option here called Separate Folders for Each Level. This is under the Lyrics section in Options, Lyrics. And when you set that to true, what you can do is create a different folder to hold your lyrics for each dance level, for each dance program. I don't normally use this myself, but some people make extensive use of it. So I went ahead and configured up a little bit here. When we turn that option to true, separate folders for each level, we make that true. And then if we go to Options, Choreography, we see a list of different dance levels here. There's a setting for global options that apply across all of the dance levels, but then we can change those. So for example, at the mainstream level, I can put in the name of a disk directory that has my cue sheets for mainstream dances. Under plus, I can go ahead, let's see, I'm going to close up mainstream, and under plus, I can go ahead and create a different folder. By the way, the option for this one is called the Path Level Lyrics. Under each of these dance programs, I can point to a different folder for my plus cue sheets. And so then, with that, up here at the top in the corner is a menu option to say change level. If I have this currently clicked at mainstream, and I go ahead and run all that jazz here, this particular piece of music. Okay, if we scroll down a little bit through here, you see after the Ferris wheel is a center square through 3 swinger corner promenade. Okay, typical mainstream type figure. But if I change my level, my dance level to plus, and go back and I'm going to play that, start that same music, all that jazz. Down here in this figure, after the Ferris wheel, there's a centers veer left, crossfire, walk and dodge. Showed me different cue sheets for different dance levels. Now, it's a bunch of work. I had to make up a cue sheet for Mainstream. I had to create a disk directory in which I put that cue sheet. I had to create a disk directory for Plus. I had to write another cue sheet for Plus and put it in there. And I had to get rid of the default main one that comes at the very top level with SquareView. Okay, because it seems to find that main one first before it digs into the other levels. But if you're interested, if you like to do that, if that's something that you want, with a bit of work, you can set up different cue sheets for the same piece of music for each different dance level. SquareView does support many different levels, essentially basic through Challenge 4. I don't know if anybody's got different lyrics for Challenge 4, but if you did, if your name is Stanley Winchester and you're writing Challenge 4 singing calls, which are very wonderful, by the way, but so doing different choreography, different lyrics per level is something that some people are very, very interested in doing. Questions, comments on that before we quickly move on? No questions, no comments, good. One of the next things that people ask about is, can SquareView help me look at and use choreography that I've written myself, the choreography that I'd like to do? This is where the Options Choreography tab begins to help. Okay. Once again, when we open Options Choreography, we see a list of many different dance levels, and we'll just kind of open up this level here for Mainstream. And the options that we see here, first is how many tabs across the top would we like displayed whenever we're doing a Mainstream dance. If you configure 0, that says go back and use the global level, which is currently set to 9 tabs. And by default, this global level, you can put in names for each one of the tabs that you're going to do. But we could say at Mainstream, I only want 6 tabs, or I want 12 tabs. And then you can give each of those tabs a name at each given dance level. The default names, if we look under the global piece, the default names, it starts with the program list as tab number 3. Tab number 4 is the definitions for that level. And then tab 5, it says start. And what that's intended to be used for, if you wanted, is to put in sort of opening figures, opening biggies kind of thing. You put a list of that. Tab 6 by default is called figure, and I think what Tom was, or what Thomas was thinking of is that's where you put your main set of sequences and things as you're working through. He's got a place called home for at-home get-outs, perhaps, that you write this down, or a different tab for get-outs of various type. And then he's got a 9th tab here called singing calls. You can make those tabs be anything that you want. Anything at all that you want. You can have up to 16 different tabs along the way. So if you want to set up things according to different ways that you use the choreography, feel free to do that. The next piece, as far as creating choreography, if we go under the Tools menu here, there is a Tools Choreography Manager, and down here at the center bottom of the window for the Choreography Manager is a button with a pair of interlocked squares that says Choreography. If you click that, you basically get a little text window. Now, SquareView will not really help you write or invent choreography. It's not going to show you calls. It's not going to suggest calls for you. It's not going to give you graphics showing you what the dancers look like. SquareView depends on other programs to do that. Or perhaps you're just pushing checkers yourself on the desk or something. It's not intended to really be, to show you what the result of your choreography is. Instead, SquareView is just sort of a minimal piece here that lets you type in something that you've written yourself, or inventing it as you go here, or pushing your checkers, Or you can, if you have a program like SD or CSDS, a couple of the other options out there, they can help you write the choreography. You can save those to disk files, and then you can bring that into SquareView here with this other tool. So you can just do something really simple like, well, here, I'm just going to type for a second. All right, I just typed, just briefly, I just said had square through element left. Yeah, you know, challenging choreography here. We can go ahead and save that, and we can save it if you wish. You can save it to a database inside of SquareView, a database that has separate figures for each of our dance levels, basic up through Challenge 4. So you can save it to the choreography database at the appropriate level, or you can save it to a disk directory, or you can save it to a file. You can name it whatever you want. So it's just a tiny little text editor. There is some sort of formatting here that you can apply. You can go ahead and change the fonts. You can change the, you know, put in bolds and stuff like that. I don't know that I can change color. I don't think I can change color. Well, I guess I probably can change color under the format font, but you can do some indentation and things like that. Now, what many people will do is they'll write each sequence into a separate file. Not a whole tip, but just one chunk of it, just a sequence. And then, once you have those files made up, you can use this choreography manager here. If you were in the last session, they talked about how to create and assemble playlists, where you pick several pieces of music in order, put them into a list, save that list of file, that list of music, into a file itself. That's called a playlist. And you can then open up that playlist and just go from top to bottom with the songs or whatever. Same thing happens here with this choreography list. You can create a list of the different choreographic files that you created. Perhaps each one has a different sequence in it, and you can build that choreography list as you go to assemble like a given dance. Okay, I'm going to do this advanced workshop today, and here, these are the sequence that I want to use. You know, go find this one and this one and that one. You can, for example, you can search for a file by name. You can even use, there's a find call button. It says, show me all of my sequences that have tally-ho in them. You know, the call tally-ho, and here they are. And then you can add tally-ho when you want, and so on. So you can build choreographic lists of your individual sequences, assemble them in order, and save that away. You can write that to the database, or you can write it to a separate disk file. Yes? Question? Yep. Microphone is on its way.
Okay, this is coming from a round dance point of view. If you create choreography, can that then be linked to a piece of music?
Yes, through that would be considered more of a cue sheet than through this choreography manager.
Right.
But absolutely, you can link that to a piece of music. I'll show you that here in just a moment. Okay. So on these extra tabs across the top, like the start, the figure, the home, and so on, basically there is a button that you can open up a directory, or you can open up a file. That file can be one of the choreographic lists. And so you can put into each tab that choreographic list of sequences and things that you work to build up over time, and display that whole list of files, as it were. As you go through, there are big buttons here, next and back, that let you, you finish up one sequence, push the next button, it displays the next sequence for you. Push the next button, it displays the next sequence. There's a +10 and a -10. Skip forward 10 more out of this file, just go ahead. There's even one that says, I'd like to display the choreographic sequences that I made in random order. Just pick one for me, anyone, I don't care. You know, when you do that, you hit random again, it picks another random one for you. From within those sequences, there is an edit button that you can modify one of the sequences if you were doing something ahead of time and, oops, that's spelled wrong, hang on just a minute, I'm going to fix that. Or perhaps you were doing some preparation or something like that. There is one other feature here that's kind of interesting. Sometimes when you're using pre-written choreography, you might call a sequence and it doesn't work. Have you ever had that happen? Oh, you've seen it happen. I know it's never happened to you, Justin. Yep, no, we never make mistakes. We never read it wrong. We never write it wrong. But if you did, or if you spotted something with bad flow, somebody had a stamp they made. I think they used it for Clark Baker, a bad flow stamp. Thump, 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 they would put on his cards. Okay, they didn't like it. They'd run up to the front desk, get the stamp out. It's bad flow, bad. But if for some reason you're working along through this choreography and you want to go back and revisit a particular file, a sequence or something, there's a button here labeled Memory. You can click that button and it will write the name of that sequence, that file, down in a separate place. It doesn't tell you why you saved it. It doesn't ask you why. It just mark this, put it aside, and then later on, when you have a chance, there is a tool called the Memory Manager that then shows you those sequences that you marked as, I need to go back and look at this. So you can, as you're going through, using your choreography, mark one for memory, and then later after the dance come back and review what it is that you marked for whatever reason. Every now and then there will be a button in SquareView for checkers. If you have a checker pushing program on your system, like CSDS or SD or Colorama or whatever, there is an option you can use under, I want to say it's under Options Choreography. It's either that or Options General. I'll have to find it if somebody cares. There is an option if you search through the options where you can tell it which program you've got. And so anytime you push that checkers button within SquareView, it will fire up that other checkers program. Boop, just so you don't have to go chase down a start button or something for that. So the checkers are there. So you can write your own choreography. It's encouraged to write it in many small pieces. Use the choreography manager to assemble the many small pieces into a larger set that you can use during tips or dances. You can mark those as memory if you need to go back and revisit them. You can change the fonts, you can change the colors, you can change the whatever. You can write them to a database if you wish within SquareView instead of a whole bunch of separate files. You can open that database back up, get your sequences out of there. The database is by level, or you can make disk directories, disk folders by dance level. Here's my challenge stuff, here's my mainstream stuff, here's my advanced stuff, and so on. Vic Cedar even goes so far as to organize his choreography into difficulty levels within each dance level. He's got easy advanced, medium advanced, hard advanced. He's got easy at each of the challenge levels. He's got easy to difficult things. He has what he calls challenge X, if I remember right, which is like the hardest stuff for anybody in the world ever to execute. He doesn't bring out his X stuff very often. Questions, comments, thoughts about choreography? Yes, microphone is on its way. So again, SquareView is not really focused at choreography. It is a basic tool to help you just record it, write it down, and see it. Yes, question?
Tom Davis out of Dayton, Ohio. Barry, isn't there a choreo program within SquareView that you can tie into that will pull up mainstream calls, get outs, this type of thing?
Within SquareView, or excuse me, within when you download SquareView from Tomas's website, the website is sqview.se, SE short for Sweden. On his website, there you can download. There's a number of different downloads. One of them includes a utility file that does have some suggested choreography, and so sometimes on these tabs labeled odd or get out, you can open up some of the choreography that Tomas has provided. I forget exactly what the file names are. We could look them up.
Well, I think it's under choreo, and then it goes through basic, mainstream.
He's got different ones for each level.
And you, if I'm not mistaken, I think on mine, you click on that, it'll bring it. You can take it to that file and actually load it into that file, and it'll show you get outs and
right.
setups from 1P, 2P line, box 1/4s, whatever you want to do. It gives you singing call figures and everything else, all within that one program.
Yeah, those are all things that he has assembled and made available to people. If you don't want to do your own, you can get some of his. Another interesting resource for choreographic sequences is Vic and Debbie Ceder's website, ceder.net. That's CEDER.net. And if you look at choreography there, Vic has a database with tens of thousands of figures in it, at every different level, every different level of difficulty. He's got them rated easy, medium, difficult, and so on. You can search for something by call. I've used that if I want to have a singing call that features a given call I just taught. I can look at find singing call figures that feature that one and pick and choose what I want. And then you can copy and paste those things into here as well. So there's Rich Reel has all8.com with an incredible wealth of choreography that he's done there. Mostly singing call figures and some unusual get-outs and get-ins and get-outs, things like that. Rich developed his own notation. Every call has a 5-letter abbreviation, plus he can put things like heads or sides in front of that, or sometimes boys or girls or centers or ends or whatever. Once you get used to his style of abbreviation, it's interesting because every call that you write down is exactly the same number of characters on the screen. And so if you display it in the right fonts, you can actually read across the line, and he arranges things so that as you're reading across the line, doing it your direction from right to left, you can drop down a line and use a different, call the same thing up through here, but then drop down and call through here, and then drop down and call the rest of this stuff. It lets him produce a huge amount of choreography in a very terse format. I found it very useful as I was beginning to call. I found that to be an incredibly useful source of choreography. Okay, so writing your own cue sheets, writing your own choreography, doing markers throughout the piece of music as you go. The cue sheets, we talked briefly about writing your own cue sheets, but then you can connect those cue sheets to given pieces of music here with the tools Merry Lyrics option. Merry Lyrics. Merry Lyrics, I mentioned that if you put the name of the cue sheet and make it match the name of the MP3 file exactly, SquareView can find those things together. You can actually, there are some options. I do want to, before we go into the Merry cue sheets, under Options Lyrics, there is a way, as you go to search for the lyrics, the very second option here, is you can tell it that you want to search by the record label, the record number, RR101, or you can search by the title, All That Jazz or something like that, or you can search by the actual file name. You can get it to try and match on any of those things. It will do its best to match just on the piece that you told it about. But then, that's in the automatic searching. But if you want to manually configure exactly what gets connected to what, the Mary Lyrics window here, this is under Tools, it allows you to display, you can choose the list of music, the directory or the playlist or whatever. You can choose the list of music here on the left side of the screen by using these buttons down below, directory or list, and it will present, okay, these are my MP3 files. Over on the right side of the screen, you can give a list of known cue sheets. By default, it will show you information from the cue sheet database that comes with SquareView that has 11 or 12,000 different cue sheets already written. Or you can point it at a directory of cue sheets that you've got yourself. You can search the database, you can search the directory, you can hunt through here. Once you find a given piece of music and you select a given cue sheet to go with it, so you click on one thing on each side. Here's my MP3 on the left, here's the cue sheet I want on the right. This blue button in the middle, Add, connects those two together. And then each time you go to put on that piece of music, off and away you go. I believe there's a way to marry it level specific. I don't think I've practiced that, so I'm not, if for example, we wanted to do phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 with round dance choreography, I think there's a way to do it. I'm not positive. With the explicit marry as opposed to doing the separate directories for each. Separate directories for each would work just fine. So you can match the music together. Now, when you do that, every now and then you make a mistake and you connect the wrong set of lyrics. So if you ever do connect the wrong set of lyrics to a given piece of song, again, we're using the Tools Mary Lyrics window here, and you can scroll through that. You can sort by name, you can scroll through the list of everything that's there, and if you want, you can highlight one of them and push the delete button here. This does not remove the music, it does not remove the cue sheet. All it does is remove the entry that says these two are tied together. So if you make a mistake, you highlight the mistake, press delete, and they are no longer tied together. If you have a whole bunch of them that you want to do, if you want to manage that in a spreadsheet, or something like that, you can export this list of connected lyrics into a spreadsheet and then tweak it there and import it back into SquareView using the export and import buttons that are down here. We're moving along. We're about halfway done. We have another question on the back. How are we doing
Trying
on
to
time?
work on your COVID.
4:50.
Mitch Pingle, Brookfield, Colorado.
I'm sorry, say again, please.
Mitch Pingle,
Yes.
Brookfield, Colorado. We loaded the new version of SquareView onto the new computer, and the lyrics, all the 11,000 that Thomas put in, didn't arrive. Is there a way to go back and get those?
There is. There is a way to go back and get those under the squareview.se website. On the left side is a link that says download, and it gives you a whole list of files. And one of the choices there is download the cue sheets. That's also useful every now and then. Go get the fresh set from him, because he may have added cue sheets for a number of different pieces of music. So you can go get kind of just a fresh list of that every now and then, straight off of his website. You can also download certain pieces of SquareView. You can download the lists and the definitions. You can download the, you can upgrade to a different version. And there's also a help file. The help file that he provides, which is also visible through this help menu. I did put it on. Yes, I did. I went through that help file. You can look at the help file on the website and see it. Come on. be a little bit bigger here. You can see in a little bit different format than what's displayed in here. But I actually went through a lot of the help file to prepare for this session. Come on, if I show that. Why are you being difficult? You're supposed to be showing me. Yeah. That's being fussy here. I usually look at the help on the website, to be honest with you, because I could navigate through that a little bit better. But yeah, the help file on the website has not complete discussion of all of these things, but at least it tells you what all the buttons are and what the buttons do, and lets you get quite a bit. A couple of other things that we want to show to people because they're useful from time to time. Under the View menu are a number of interesting little things. The music jukebox. If you've ever been asked to provide background music for some event or something like that, what you can do is point this music jukebox at one of your lists in SquareView. You have the first list box, the second list box, the third list box, and so on. And you can say, play me all that music from that list. If you build up a list of just regular music, doesn't have to be Square Dance music, you can just tell SquareView, go ahead and start playing from that list, let it run in the background, and you've got background music for some event that you're putting on, a banquet or something like that. You can tell it to play in random orders. If you wish, you can tell it just do quick snapshots, 30 seconds at a time of each thing. But I've often used it with the play in random order type of thing. The one caution I would make on that is if you play from a list that automatically shows the lyrics, the cue sheets for a given song, and if one of the pieces of music in that list if it can't match up to lyrics, by default it might show you the search dialog, right? And so you've got your background music playing along, and it stumbles across something it doesn't know how to display the lyrics for, and so it stops and waits and asks you. So you kind of listen and, oh, why'd my music stop? I have to go answer this question. So if you're going to use the music jukebox and you want to play a whole bunch of songs, turn off the automatic display of cue sheets. There's back on this main music tab, this button here with this yellow button that may or may not have a red stripe through it. The red stripe means no, I don't want to see my cue sheets. When the red stripe is not there, it's there. And there's also this play lyrics automatically when the song comes up. Turn all those things off, and you won't have any problem with the lyric search during the jukebox. Music recording. If you wish, this is a little bit more technical, but if you wire your microphone into your computer, you can play a song and record into the microphone at the same time and have SquareView mix those together and record that output into a disk file. So if you wanted to record your own dance as you were going, you can use SquareView for that purpose. Or you can run a signal out of your amplifier back into this computer or a different computer and use some other recording software if you wish. But you can do that within SquareView. There is this music recordings tab. Getting the microphone hooked up is sometimes a little tricky. There's some information in the help file on how to do that. But one of the things I like about using SquareView to record is that you can tell it to stop recording when you stop the music. Okay, you stop the music, it stops recording. You start the music, it begins again. There are also some big fancy or some easy to use controls for this. So you can tell it what file you want the music saved to, and it will handle all of that. You can actually, each time it stops and starts, it will create a separate file. So you can tell it the beginning portion of the name of the file with these little selections down here at the bottom, this date time, versus putting in some text at the beginning. So there are some techniques you can do. There was an earlier user manual for SquareView, an earlier version of SquareView, a manual that I wrote that is still available through Tomas's website on that downloads link from SquareView. And there's a lengthy discussion on how to do recording inside that 2007, I think, is when that book was written, or that manual was written. So if that is of interest to you, I suggest go back and look at that earlier section. It's still pretty much accurate. You can turn on a little timer, make bigger letters as to whether, how long you are into the music, how long this tip has been going on, or you can have it count backwards to a specific time. Start it at 7 minutes, and when it counts down to 0, and then it turns red and starts flashing at you, and you're going on too long. You can do that with the View Music timer. There is a music equalizer. You know that many software programs allow you to increase the bass or the treble or the mid-range. SquareView does have a 3-level equalizer where you can emphasize or de-emphasize particular frequencies. We can make that specific to a given piece of music. Sometimes you just kind of want it for this particular song. Other times you want it kind of more in general. I need to tweak my bass in this particular hall, or maybe I have to turn down my treble in this hall so I don't get as much feedback and the like. So you can turn on this equalizer and leave that open if you wish. Let's see. Music control. If you have a touchscreen laptop, this one is a touchscreen. It can be, if you want to use your fingers, the touch area for your finger is much, much larger than the tiny point of a mouse cursor if you're using the trackpad or a mouse. And so if you'd like to control your music using large touch-friendly buttons, you can do this View Music Control, and you get these big buttons that you see here. And so I can hit play, and there it goes. I can stop it. I can skip forward to the next song. Just with a touch screen on here, you don't have to be as finicky as if you try and do the same thing. Was that lyrics on the bottom left? Yes, I think it was. Let's look at that again. Music control. Yes, this is show the lyrics screen on the bottom left. Or forget how you go back. I usually just go back. I usually navigate using the keystrokes. This one also lets you increase or decrease the tempo of the thing right off these buttons. And there is a fade out button here, this triangle down here. As you get to the end of the pattern, rather than cut it off abruptly, you fade out. There's an option to control how long it plays during the fade out. But I like fading out my pattern music instead of just stopping it in the middle of things. Pardon me. Another interesting feature, if you're calling pattern and if you want some variety, or particularly, I like this when doing some caller workshops and things, you can do this show calls under the View menu, and it starts displaying different calls. Now this is going a different list every second, but we can make that more like, say, 10 seconds. Hit this button. Here we go. Turn that on. Turn that off. Turn it back on. Okay, so what it does, based on the level that we have chosen, remember when we were looking at choreography, different choreography for dance levels, I set my dance level to plus. By the way, we see that up in the very upper corner here. And so at the plus level here, SquareView is showing me every 15 seconds, hey, call a chase right, call an all 8 spin the top, or call a teacup chain, hey, call a chase right. It invents a new call every so often, however frequently you want. Some people like that. Or during a caller workshop, during caller instruction, I might set that to mainstream, and as guys are calling along, they need to look at this every now and then and drop in one of the calls that are selected here. It's cute. It's a little thing. I don't know how terribly useful that is for a lot of people, but it's there. It's one of the little features. That was the view show calls. Another thing that you can do, again, at some dances, you set up computer squares. They call it that, but many places use cards, where for each couple at the dance gets a card that says, if we have 9 couples at this dance, and this is the 4th tip, then you are in square number 2. Or you are sitting out, or you're in square 1, or if we've got 23 couples, who's dancing in what square when. So keeping track of which tip that you're on and how many couples you've got. Most callers have to write that down. Okay, we've got 8 couples at the dance, or 10 couples at the dance. We're on tip B. This is B10, B10. And people go find their card. So this computer cards thing that's here is just a way to keep track of which tip that you're on. And I believe it updates the tip number every time you stop and start the music, or every time you choose a different one. It updates the tip number so that you don't have to remember yourself. Come back to hotkeys in just a second. Some people have asked about using karaoke-style displays for lyrics and singing calls. Mark Hart out of California, this is in my notes, Mark Hart has just put out some YouTube videos where he shows how you can build the particular type of data file that is used for karaoke, where you can put the lyrics of a song, have it highlight the individual words at the moment that they should be sung, and watch it scroll by. Just like if you went to a karaoke bar and they put up the display and you're singing along with the background music. It's a lot of work, okay? Mark shows how to do it easily and effectively, relatively easily and effectively. He uses a tool called Karaoke Studio, I believe, to help him write his karaoke files. But if you do that, you can name the karaoke file, give it exactly the same name as the music, and it will go ahead and display that karaoke scrolling screen every time you start that particular piece of music. Still in the view menu, I'm turning off my karaoke here. Still in the view menu, there is hotkeys. I mentioned that you can use keys on the keyboard to hit the different tabs. You can also tie almost every function in SquareView to a given key on the keystroke. Under the view menu, it shows you the list of current keys that are assigned. For example, I know this is hard to read for people, the letter G on my keyboard is a fast rewind of the music. I believe that's bouncing back to to an earlier part. If I push the letter G, it skips back 5 or 10 seconds, something, a configurable amount. The letter B, as in boy, on my system right now, will decrease the volume that's being played. Or there's an increased volume here somewhere, probably near the B. Almost everything that you can do on the screen or with a menu button, you can associate with a key on the keyboard. This view hotkeys lets you see what those keys are. If you'd like to change them, it is options hotkeys. Options hotkeys let you set for each key on the keyboard what that key would do while SquareView is running. There's a whole bunch of choices, there's a whole bunch of defaults. Most people don't tweak this very much, they just learn what the defaults are. But if you particularly have certain features you like to use, for example, the function key 8 and function key 9 can play a specific sound. If you want to tie, say the trumpet fanfare that says it's time for announcements, you can tie that to function key 8. Every time you push it, da, 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 whatever. You can do those kinds of things with it. Or you can change those keys and do something different. So options, hotkeys lets you change it. View hotkeys lets you see what list you've got. Yeah, we need to be wrapping this up now, don't we? There's probably more. Actually, that's pretty much everything out there, except we didn't go through the hundreds of options that are there in the program. I encourage you to explore those, play with them. If you mess it up, there are some ways to reset options. Also, if you look at the website under the installation section, it tells you what files on disk you actually need to preserve. If you're going to back this up, there's a squareview.db, if I remember that name correctly, that is the file that contains all of the interesting settings. If you save that somewhere, install a new version, move to a different computer, you move that one file and you should have all of your settings on the other thing. So the help file tells you a bit how to do that. Last little thing I wanted to, shoot, now I forgot what the last little thing was going to be. There was one other little thing, but that's okay. Any other quick questions before we wrap this up? We could talk longer. I know this has been lightning fast. I do have notes on all of this. I will get those published through Teresa and through the Caller Lab portal for the convention. Any other questions somebody has quick before we go? Justin, I think we've reached
all right. Hearing none. How about a hand for Barry Johnson? So we'll go ahead and take a break.